Hey everybody, it's Julie. Thanks for joining me today. We are journaling in Romans chapter 6, verses 6 through 8, and I am using the January Faith Art Box from Creative Retreat. Now, what I'm starting off by doing is highlighting these verses with a gelato. I'm just taking the pigment, I'm just picking up the pigment directly off of the gelato with my aqua brush. I could also do this with a watercolor crayon, with a watercolor pencil, but I am watercolor paints, but I'm using a gelato. It works the same way. I'm going to be doing some coloring in my margin, and I'm using several different gelato colors. Gelatos are very easy to use, and that's what we're doing here. Now these verses, I was inspired by the devotional that came with the kit this month, and I will talk about those verses in just a few minutes. But the devotional is all about a new life and newness and being renewed in Christ. And so I'm using these gelatos and just coloring a lot like you do with crayons, just making circles, just kind of making a big splotch with, I've got 4 different colors going here. And the reason why is there are 4 different snowflakes in the stamp set. So I have assigned a color for each snowflake. And now I'm using my aqua brush to smudge, to blend these gelato colors. The gelatos are blendable. They are activated by water, so they blend, they smudge, they just become beautifully watercolorish, if you will, when you mix them with water. So that's what I'm doing. I'm adding a little bit here in the text, but they're translucent, so you can still read through them and read the text. So I'm just putting some into just getting it all over the page. All of these things, I'm just blending them all together. And then I'm going to come back in with my snowflakes and actually stamp them over these dots, and you'll see how that's going to work. Now I need to apologize. There's just a terrible shadow here that I'm working with, so my lighting was not the best this evening as I was making my video, so I really do apologize. So I am just drying that up a little bit. You can see that the gelatos really don't bleed through. You get a bit of a shadow effect, but they don't bleed through. So gelatos are really fun and easy to use. Now I'm going to take some of these stamps. Right now I'm taking the scallop stamp, and the wonderful thing about these stamps, these photopolymer and acrylic clear stamps, is you can bend them to suit your purposes. So even though this scallop stamp is straight, I have curved it, and I'm going to use that in a border to go around the corner. Now, one thing you do need to be careful, when you bend them like this, it may pucker where you're curving it. So just make sure that if it picks up ink, you wipe that off. It's okay if it puckers, but it's going to pick up some ink, some excess ink, so just wipe that off so that doesn't mess up your stamped image. And now I'm going to come in with some snowflakes, and I'm using some of the chalk ink pads that are available in the Creative Retreat shop. This is the Frosted Mint, and now I'm using the Angelic Pink, and I'm using a couple of the snowflake images, the stamps, and I'm just adding a little shadow of a snowflake here and there on the page. It's just a very light, faint image. Now I have switched to the Forgiven stamp, and I stamped that going down in my margin, and now I'm going to add the Freely stamp, and there are 4 different words, and I am stamping those kind of falling down the margin, just like the snowflakes are going to be falling down. So we've got freely, forgiven, fully, and now forever. So these are just falling. I'm giving the impression of all these different snowflakes that are falling. And in just a minute, you're seeing now I'm stamping over the different dots with the different snowflakes. So pink gets one of these snowflakes, and I switch as I switch the colors. And now I'm using, this is the Illustrated Faith pigment ink, the Black Eyed Pea pigment ink. So as I'm stamping this, I'm going to read the verse. It says, "We know that our old sinful selves were crucified with Christ so that sin might lose its power in our lives. We are no longer slaves to sin, for when we died with Christ, we were set free from the power of sin." And since we died with Christ, we know that we also live with him. So I'm focusing here on the fact that we are free in Christ. We have died with Christ at the cross. Not us physically, but our sinfulness has died with Christ at the cross. So now what you see here, I'm just underlining the verses, but I've got a page here, but you really need a focal point for a page. And I want something more just to emphasize that freedom, that newness that we have in Christ. What I'm doing right now is using the circle stamp, the O, and I'm going to highlight the word set free. So I've actually used the gelato. I simply just colored it directly onto the stamp and then used my aqua brush and made it wet, and then I could use that as an ink. So I cut a tab out of the devotional backing with my We Are Memory Keepers tab punch, and I used one of the stickers that says renewed. And now I'm using the angelic pink chalk ink pad just to do some dusting on the edge. And now for that focal point, I'm making a circle. I used some mint cardstock and I cut it out with a big circle punch. And I'm going to just do some background stamping on this circle. I could leave it plain if I wanted to, but I really want to get some of these snowflakes on there too. When you get a whole new clean, beautiful snow, it gives that newness, that beautiful covering, that blanket of newness and freshness. And that's what we have in Christ, newness in Christ. So I stamped Made New in You as the center of this circle. Now I'm taking that scallop punch again and I've curved it, and I'm actually going to go around this whole circle and make a border of the circle. And just by stamping it 3 times, depending of course on the size of your circle, but I was able to make a border, a circle border. You'll see me a little bit later, there's just one tiny edge that didn't get a complete mark on it, so I'm going to go in and just with a pen and fix that. Now I'm placing that on my page. I'm going to end up moving that slightly down a little bit because I've got it in the middle, but it's best to have it either 1/3, here we go, either 1/3 down the way or 2/3 down the way. It's just more pleasing to the eye. I add my tab up at the top and some washi tape at the top and the bottom. So that could have been my page. I had a focal point, I had some background stamping, I had a tab at the top. That could have been the page, but I decided I wanted to do a little bit more. I'm just going to take it up to another level, and I'm going to make some letters and some cutout letters. So I'm using that same mint cardstock, and I'm doing the same thing, stamping some of these snowflakes onto the cardstock in different colors. I'm using the frosted mint, the angelic pink, and I'm also going to stamp some of these words on here, the free and the freely and forgiven, some of these words, and just doing a little bit of background. And you also see here I added some white snowflakes to this, and now I'm going to cut out letters. Now there are a couple of ways you could do this. I'm just going to free cut these letters. I just do a block and then I cut them from there. Now I'm going to cut the words free, so I'm doing 2 from my mint cardstock and then 2 from the backing of the devotional. So I've got 2 different colors of each, and they both have those snowflakes. And I'm simply just, fussy cutting here. I didn't trace anything, but you can print off a font. You can stamp it and cut it. You can trace it and cut it. You can do a number of things if you don't feel comfortable just doing a free cut like this. You could certainly use stickers if you wanted to, but what I'm doing here is I just cut those. These are pretty easy letters, so it really wasn't that hard to do. And I cut out the letters free, F-R-E-E. And now with my precision pen, I'm going on the inside of each of the letter, and I'm drawing an outline on the inside. So I guess it's an inline is what it is, just a double one. It kind of gives it a stitched look on each side. I sped up the process, so it probably took me about 15 minutes to get all of that done, the cutting and then the outlining of those letters. And I'm going to use, now this is going to be my primary focal point, the word free, because I really want to emphasize how we are free in Christ. So I'm going to attach these letters just by stapling them. Now I don't have a little tiny stapler that's so cute. I'm just using a standard stapler, and I'm just slightly overlapping the letters. I'm sorry you can't see that too well, but my arm doesn't stretch very well, so I'm having to pull those off of the screen slightly. So you can just slightly see what I'm doing. And I just stapled them together to attach them. Now I'm going to get a couple of the stickers and the letters, and this banner sticker, I'm putting on it the words I am. So it's going to read I am free. I'm putting the ampersand sticker, so now it's going to say I am free and made new. And off screen, I did a little bit. My camera actually, it cut off, but or actually I think I came back and did it the next day. Sometimes you just sit on a project and then you see it. And I added a couple things, but I'll mention that. So now this free is going to become a tip-in. I made a couple of little hinges just with some of the extra cardstock. You just make, you take a strip of cardstock and you fold it in half and then glue one side to the letter and one side to the paper, to the Bible, and then it becomes a hinge. So now I've got the Made New banner with my journaling on the back of that, the circle. I put a little circle heart in the middle of the R, and I'm outlining these things. I'm going to put my date stamp, and you'll see in the still shots, I come back in on the Made New circle, and I add a heart, a couple of hearts, an arrow, and I do add the in Christ instead of in you because I want to focus that it's on Christ. And so I add just a little bit of detailing there. So there's the page. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Head over to the Creative Retreat website and to the blog so you can see what other ladies are doing with this kit. Make sure you pick up this kit if you haven't already. And join us again next time. Take care. Bye-bye.